Awesome. All right, so welcome everyone. Where we're going to be picking up, we're on page 133, and we're at the very first full paragraph of page 133 in the family afterward. And this is, and actually, I know for the Americans that you guys are having American Thanksgiving right around the corner, and we are going to be talking about the chocolate. And if we need to extrapolate, pumpkin pie for those that celebrate portion of the big book. So this is an exciting part of the book. We have the having chocolate part. We have well, that's really the most important part. We'll get to the chocolate part of it. So that's where we're picking up. So page 133, first full paragraph. Now about health. So again, as we approach the family afterward, it's important to understand we're talking about the different dynamics that a family will experience after the alcoholic has recovered. So when we talk about the family afterward, it's after what? After the alcoholic has recovered. So welcome, page 133, first full paragraph, now about health. It goes on to say, a baddie... let me start the whole thing again, a baddie. Well, welcome all you baddies. Glad you're here. Gosh, it's going to be a long one for everyone. You can tell my brain's not working. Alrighty, now about health. A body badly burned by alcohol does not recover overnight. Nor does twisted thinking and depression vanish in a twinkling. And as we approach this first paragraph, we're seeing a lot of what I talk about in these later chapters, which is that non-dual consciousness, where two things at the same time can be true. The first thing that we have been emphasizing with the first 103, crushing through those pages, is that an alcoholic can and will and does have a profound spiritual experience. It is available to us all. This experience where we are absolutely transformed from the inside out. That is true. And as we delve past page 103 into Two Wives, Family Afterward, carrying on, what we are seeing is, and we are still human. And we still make mistakes. And so we might have some distorted thinking. We might still have some depressive episodes. That's what it's saying. Like, we can be transformed, and yet we are still human. Yet we are still imperfect, which is rude. I thought I would get an A+ on this thing. Where's my gold star? That's what I was after. And so it says, we are convinced that a spiritual mode of living, when we say spiritual mode of living, we are talking about a spiritual way of life. And that's what these 12 steps are, a way of life, not a set it and forget it program, but how we live our life. It says, we are convinced that a spiritual mode of living is a most powerful health restorative. And while I can't speak too much to that because, I am very rigorous in my spiritual activities, but I don't have abs. Well, I do. They're just under some squishy bits, which is fine. They live there. I like my cheese and carbs. That's what I'm here for. But what I will say is there is something to be said about stress. You know what I mean? When I don't know about you, but when I am in the delusion of the God chair, I'm like, actually there's that Wizard of Oz movie, the Wicked movie that came out, the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the strings. When I am an ill-qualified higher power and I am trying to pull the strings of my life and your life and direct everything, all I will let you know is, it's a tad stressful. Why? Because I am a terrible higher power. I am an ineffective God. I'm a terrible God. I manage my life into unmanageability. And that's stressful. And what I will say is having this radically different outlook upon life reduces stress, reduces anxiety, and has in my life. And I've experienced a lot of freedom from a variety of symptoms that have plagued me. I lived my whole life with anxiety. Like, I had anxiety in vitro. It was stressful in there. Like, I was holding on to, my mom will tell me, I was holding on to that umbilical cord for dear life. It's too much. I was anxious from the go. And what I've found is this ability, when I lean into these 12 steps as a way of life, there has been a peace that I never thought possible, a serenity that I've never thought possible. So it makes sense that it would be a most powerful health restorative. It goes on to say, we who have recovered, and there's that word again, recovered. Recovered does not mean cured. Recovered means that the obsession of the mind has been removed. That thought that I have that inevitably takes me back to the first drink, it's gone. And it's gone as the result of this course of action. So we who have recovered from serious drinking are miracles of mental health. Miracles. And my dear friend Tara, he talks about, I believe in miracles because I am a miracle. I couldn't start there, to be honest with you. I had to start with I believed in miracles because I saw the miraculous recovery that was your life. I didn't see it in me. I saw it in you first. And I saw somebody like you who drank the way that I drank, who went through what I went through. And man, you are happy and sober and like you're experiencing joy. You know what I mean? And peace. And you're not like me, but you were once. And then I saw that in myself. Miracles of mental health. And this might be a little too personal, but I was talking the other day at a meeting about how I used to show up to life. Sober and drunk and otherwise, just in the general, my alcoholism. And it was bad. You know, holes in the wall, bad. Self-injury, bad. In and out of hospitals, emergency rooms, because of things I did to me, bad. In and out of, just like police officers coming to do little welfare checks, bad. You know what I mean? And now I'm somebody where they're like, Paige, could you please be of service? Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, ma'am, we need you to leave. You're making a scene. There is a dramatical shift in the way that I show up to life and even how I move through difficult situations. So, and it really is, alcoholism is a horrific illness, and what comes with it is awful. And those of us who have recovered, we get to be the best versions of ourselves. It says, but we have seen remarkable transformations in our bodies. Not mine, but maybe in yours. I'm just joking. I have chronic health issues. That's why I'm making that joke. And listen, I will say, the more I lean in, the better I feel. We're good. But it says, hardly one of our crowd shows any mark of dissipation. So dissipation in a regular 2025 dictionary, which, in my case would be Google, would talk about that's like an overindulgence or that leads to us becoming less. But in my 1930s dictionary, because I am fun, I looked it up because, that's what you do, right? Look up things in your 1930s dictionary. I'm still cool, you guys. But it describes this excessive indulgence in drink. So when we use that definition, it sort of illuminates probably the more intended meaning of the sentence, which is almost none of us, like visibly, you could tell that we were alcoholics, that we have had horrific years of alcoholism. That's what it's saying. It then goes on to say, but this does not mean we disregard human health measures. God has abundantly supplied the world with fine doctors, psychologists, and practitioners of various kinds. And I love the idea that it is God that has given us. Back in step 2, we ask God, is everything or else God is nothing? And if I have any experience of my life of a power that is beyond myself, or I believe that you've got better things to do on November 26th than show up and lie about your experience, then God must be everything because God cannot be nothing. And if I see that my role, and it was funny, I do 2 big book studies today on Wednesdays, and at the first big book study, there's a bit of a Q&A part after, well, actually, just like this one. But we started joking around, and we started asking me ridiculous questions, like, can rabbits swim? Yes, but it's not good for them. Do fish fart? That was one of them. And then I was asked, what's the meaning of life? The fish one was trickier than the meaning of life. And I was talking, not that I know, but like just what's from my experience, to do God's will, to be an expression of God in the world, to be an expression of love in the world. And if that's what I'm called to be, is it possible that there are people in professional settings, and that's who they are called to be, that they are expressions of God in the world, expressions of kindness in the world? And really what we're talking about here is, if we need outside help, and it's going to say it right here, it's okay to get outside help. If I'm working these steps, I'm going hard, and there's still stuff going on, I can get outside help. If I'm going hard at these steps, I'm working with others, and I maybe have childhood trauma, and it's keeping me up at night. But I'm still doing my meditation. I'm praying. I'm making my amends. I'm working with others. It's okay to seek outside help. It's okay. And it says most of them give freely of themselves, that their fellows may enjoy sound minds and bodies. I don't think I've ever had either of those. I don't think, nothing over here is sound, But it says, try to remember that though God has wrought miracles among us, we should never belittle a good doctor or psychiatrist. Now, I will be a little pedantic. It says, don't belittle a good one. Doesn't say what we got to do about a bad one. I am kidding. We don't belittle anyone. There's an amends if I do that. Listen, I live my life with the ninth step in mind. It saves me trouble. But I love that those two things are true. That a miracle has been wrought in my life. A miraculous change and a miraculous demonstration, like through those of us who have recovered. And there are still times where we need outside help. It is okay. It is okay. If we're seeking outside help, we're not turning our back on God. It's okay. God is working. God is everything. It says their services are often indispensable, which is to say we couldn't go without them in treating a newcomer and following his case afterwards. Keep in mind, to withdraw of alcohol can be deadly. It can be fatal. And so often we need to get alcoholics into the care of a medical practitioner of some sort for the withdrawal process. Typically, where I live in the world in 2025, you would take them to a detox facility because those are available. And it's important to have medical supervision for that sort of thing because, alcohol withdrawal can lead to seizures, which can be fatal. So that's important. So that's why it's saying like, hey, that medical service can be indispensable. Now, this is going to be, listen, we love Dr. Silkworth. Who doesn't, right? Dr. Silkworth, he gave Silky, our homeboy, he gave us knowledge of what our problem is. Oh man, Gary's here and I have the book on that other table. I'm like, you could read more about Silkworth's place of employment if you pick up Gary's book. Sorry, I will focus. It was such a good tie-in and it's literally out of arm's reach. I can see it, but I can't grab it. Anywho. Oh. So Silky, how do we not love him? Silkworth, he's a great doctor. Dr. Bob, oh my gosh, who doesn't love Dr. Bob? Bill Wilson's first successful 12-step call. Our co-founder of AA, and he was a prolific 12-stepper. He was a great guy. Gary Rob's trying to find out if he ever called his sponsees pigeons. So that's a bit of a mystery if you want to join him on the rabbit hole. That's for the history husbands. Now, here's the thing. You might have an affinity for those two doctors, but for some of us, we might be like, ooh, this is the doctor for me. So, and do we know who he is? I don't know who he is, but we love this guy. It says, one of the many doctors who had the opportunity of reading this book in manuscript form told us that the use of sweets was often helpful. Wonderful! We're in the candy and chocolate portion of the big book. That's right. Some of us are like, oh, the later chapters don't apply. But if you had a sweet tooth, it's helpful. And then of course, because people like us go into the extremes, it's like, of course, depending upon a doctor's advice. Womp, womp. What do you mean I can't just fix my feelings? Yeah, it's Bill Wilson's birthday. For those that are able, enjoy some cake. If you, or don't let me tell you what to do. So he said he thought all alcoholics, oh, that's me, thank goodness. All alcoholics should constantly have chocolate available for its quick energy value at times of fatigue. I mean, who am I to argue with doctor's orders? Now there was a time in my life where it was like, I was arguing with a whole lot of, well, not arguing, but I had medication and I would not take it except all at once in a terrible suicide attempt. So this is a bit, I can follow these orders, He added occasionally in the night a vague craving arose which would be satisfied by candy. Many of us have noticed a tendency to eat sweets and found this practice beneficial. And who doesn't? Who isn't like, oh, wonderful, candy, sweets, chocolate. I'm just following directions in the big book. I'm just being a diligent AA member. But I will say it's more in reference because alcohol is so high in sugar. That, like in those early first few days, we'll have those like sugar crashes and yearning. I'm not using the word craving because I use that specifically for the allergy, but craving in a sense of we want the sugar to help us navigate that. But I will say technically, not that myself, I would ever be pedantic, although I have been known a time or two. It doesn't tell us when I no longer need to stop carrying chocolate. I mean, it's implied a little early sobriety, but it didn't put a limit on that early sobriety. I'm just kidding. I'll be serious. I will be a responsible adult. So for those that are able, enjoy. And now we transition into, and this is one of the things that I love about the big book. Often we talk about how, this isn't applicable. It doesn't apply. But a lot of what is in this book, of course, the spiritual stuff is immensely practical, but we're going to talk about stuff that is often difficult to talk about. It says a word about sex relations. And so this is where we transition into sexual difficulties and for some people, impotence. And how do we navigate it? Which I just love because that works really well for my brain. If we speak in euphemisms and skirt around a topic, sometimes it goes way over my head. Just tell me what you need. Tell me what you want. Direct language is best for me. But as we're talking about this, it's like, you might have, it's like, this is a trouble that often happens when people get sober, regardless of gender or sexual orientation, for a number of reasons. And it's this idea that sometimes we get sober and we struggle with sex, which I know nobody here relates to ever, but it's that thing that often what I don't share, it grows shame. And to know that if it's in the book, they spent money to put it in the book. You know what I mean? They spent money to put it in the book. They're not throwing out anything like super willy-nilly. This is important. And if you're experiencing this, you're not alone. So it says a word about sex relations. Alcohol is so sexually stimulating to some men that they have overindulged. An alcoholic overindulging in sexual behavior? Shocking! I've heard no such thing. I know I was as pure as the driven snow, maybe in February. That's a joke for those of us who live where you get snow. Thank you. Not appropriate. I mean, it's kind of like a northern equivalent to when people in the South are like, bless your heart. It sounds good, but you get to know its meaning if you stick around a while. Anywho, I'll focus. It says couples are occasionally dismayed to find that when drinking is stopped, the men tends to be impotent, which I will say it's impotent, not important, because we might misread that and be like, yes, I am important. We already spoke about how to deal with that earlier in the chapter. Oh. And it goes on to say, unless the reason is understood, there may be an emotional upset. And you can imagine being in a romantic sexual relationship with your spouse, your partner, whoever, and they suddenly get sober. They have a spiritual experience and they are transformed. And then they're not interested in intimacy. And what would the natural conclusion be? The human conclusion. They only like me when they're drinking. They had to drink to be with me. That very human response. And and more often than that, that's not true. Sometimes there is a physiological sort of issue. Sometimes it is where, when we've been out in our alcoholism, we've engaged in a lot of like sexual behaviors, some of which maybe brought us shame or were outside of the bounds of what later we realized were our sex ideal. And there's almost a desire to pull back and to reassess. And some of it is our own stuff about, well, I'm sober, and now I'm feeling awkward and uncomfortable. Now, this is talking more at a physiological level, but I know all of that is true. You know why? Because I've dealt with that. I've worked with others. Like, this is part of the human thing. And so it's what we're saying is, if we're going through it, we're not alone. And here's even greater hope. It says, some of us had this experience only to enjoy in a few months a finer intimacy than ever. It will work itself out. In many times. Now, I will also say we need to put effort into a relationship for it to work itself out, we gotta, cultivate love and trust and connection and intimacy, various types. There's more than one. We gotta do that in a relationship to rebuild that. But yeah, getting sober, it's kind of like finding yourself for the first time, like who we really are. And many of us are learning things that we didn't know. And we were drunk when we were supposed to be learning certain things. So it can sometimes take a little while to feel comfortable for whatever reason it is. And actually, while I'm on that tangent, some of the reason too is because when we get sober, sometimes some of that trauma hits us as well. Sometimes, you put down the drink. It's like you're speeding down the highway and the stuff that happens is like the garbage that we're throwing in the back seat of the car. We put on the brakes and it all slams forward. And so we deal with a lot of that. And we address it. We clean it up in 4 through 9 and continue to keep it clean. But there are times where we need outside help. And so that is okay. So again, I want to talk about that in an all-encompassing way. It's all okay. And for those that just joined, welcome. We're on page 134. It says, there should be no hesitancy in consulting a doctor or psychologist if the condition persists. We do not know of many cases where the difficulty lasted long. So just an encouragement. You're not alone. It will be okay. If you need outside help, that is okay. But it usually will resolve itself. It goes on to say, the alcoholic may find it hard to reestablish friendly relations with his children. Keep in mind, if we're an alcoholic and we have kids, we've hurt them. We've caused harm that we might not be able to see. It says their drinking minds were impressionable. Their young minds were impressionable while he was drinking. Without saying so, he may cordially hate him for what he has done to them and to their mother. So we've put strain and stress and affected these kids and their ability to feel safe. And what we're getting at is that it's going to take, and I want to emphasize this, it's not time, it's consistency to repair that damage. We can and we will and we absolutely can repair those relationships, but it takes consistency. Now it says The children are sometimes dominated by a pathetic hardness and cynicism. Now, I read that and I was like, whoa, a pathetic hardness and cynicism? Like, these are kids that have been traumatized, growing up in an alcoholic household, like many alcoholics were. Pathetic seems a little harsh, and it seems a little out of left field. So I looked it up. And where would I look it up? In my 1930s dictionary? Because I'm fun. I'm so fun. Who doesn't want to hang out with me? Let's read the dictionary. It'll get wild if I pull out a thesaurus. And I also realized there's probably like younger people that are like, what's a thesaurus? Oh no, it's a dinosaur just like me. So the word pathetic is affecting the emotions or passions. So a hardness and cynicism, an emotional hardness and cynicism. And that seems to fit a lot better than judging a poor kid that's just having a hard time. And it's like, yeah, not emotionally regulated, Absolutely. It says they cannot seem to forgive and forget. This may hang on for months, long after mother has accepted dad's new way of living and thinking. And so it's saying like, hey, because like, what's the reality? Almost all of us, we get sober, like, we're sober. Look, because it's a big deal. It's a life-changing thing. Last night we were joking about how there's this Al-Anon speaker, and she talks about how alcoholics are the only people that'll like show up obviously to a meeting and be like, I finally got my driver's license back. And we really act like they won a Nobel Prize or the Academy Award. We're like, yes, you did, And the Al-Anon, God bless her, she's like, that's what you were supposed to be doing the whole time, It's like, you're holding down a job. Amazing. It's like, you're supposed to, right? And so there's this idea that I get sober and I would like some accolades. I would like you to see how great I'm doing. But children are children, and their job is to be the children. I am to be the adult. And really in anyone in my life, their job is not to see it. My job is to demonstrate it and let God lead them where they may. You know what I'm saying? I might be convinced I want them to see how well I'm doing. If I continue with consistency with the daily actions of this program, they will see it. But this idea that like we could easily get their mom's forgiven me or their dad's forgiven me, or you know what I mean? Like all these other people, why is this child still holding on and to get into resentment? And why I point this out is because the book is meeting us where we're at. The book is meeting us in being unreasonable and childlike at the children, Why haven't you forgiven me yet, And so it's meeting us there, meeting us with compassion and going to take us where we need to go. And here it is. It says, in time, and I always want to point out that time, sometimes we hear time takes time, and that's not my experience. Time takes consistency. It is consistency that is key. In time, they will see he is a new man. And that's what a spiritual awakening is like, to be reborn from the inside out. And in their own way, they will let him know it. In their own way. You know what that's telling me? I've got to watch for it. Language is, behavior is a language. Behavior is communication. It might not be like, hello, mother and father, I have forgiven you for your alcoholic derelictions and I am ready for the family to resume normal activities. That's probably not how they're going to communicate. It might be nonverbal. It might be, so it's saying, again, that seeking to understand, to watch for it. It goes on to say, when this happens. So if I am consistent, it will happen. When this happens, they can be invited to join in morning meditation. What? They're just throwing it out there like it's obvious, right? What it's saying is there is morning meditation. Oh no, Paige, you're telling me it's not optional? It's the deal? It's so like not even implied. It's just assumed you'd be doing it. They didn't mean to even mention, hey, when you do a morning meditation that you're supposed to be doing. No, it's like when the children have softened and begun to heal, and we've begun to heal the relationship, they can join us in the morning meditation that we're supposed to be doing anyways. I know. And hey, listen, there's no judgment, because for a long time I was like, it's through the lens of it's prayer or meditation, or meditation. Prayer and it's both. Oh man, gotta be doing it. All right. And then they can take part in the daily discussion. Wait, what? A daily discussion? That's right. It's suggested at a number of points in this book to have that daily discussion, to touch base, which actually is really helpful relationship advice. And maybe you guys wouldn't. Maybe you guys don't codepend how I codepend. But I'm that sort of person. I can spend all day, every day with that person and have not actually communicated the important things that need to be communicated. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh yeah, no, we haven't discussed this, And so to have that period to talk about things, to make amends if I've caused harm. You know what I mean? To lean in to that daily discussion. It goes on. So they can then be invited to join in morning meditation, and they can take part in the daily discussion without rancor. And that's anger or deep spite. And listen, I know I've had some rancor. I've had my deep spite going, untreated. Deep spite. I was living there without rancor or bias. And I love that it goes on to say, from that point on, progress will be rapid. So it's as soon as they're able to begin to really participate in this way of life, that's where the growth will really take off. And what's going to invite them to participate? Obviously, the literal invitation, but the demonstration that I have made of how this way of life has changed me. The demonstration of the reparations that I've made in the relationship to repair, to restore, to create safety where there wasn't. Do you know what I mean? To amend, to truly amend the harm. So my demonstration invites them in to begin this way of life. And as they don't have to, these kiddos don't have to do 12 steps, but that idea that as they start to be introduced and see some of this stuff, the growth from there will be rapid. And it says marvelous results often follow such a reunion. And I love, because what happens is when these 12 steps, they work for anyone. They work for everyone. It is available to anyone. The whole purpose of the 12 steps is to bring about a spiritual awakening that will answer all our problems. Doesn't matter what problem I'm bringing, the 12 steps will and do work. And it goes on to say, whether the family goes on a spiritual basis or not, the alcoholic member has to, if he would recover. And there's the truth. This is a spiritual way of life which is going to answer all my problems. But it's not optional for me as an alcoholic. It's not optional. My life depends on it. And it's a callback to the step one experience that I'm after. In step one, it talks about that if I do not have a spiritual experience, I will drink again. I can't keep sober. I can't stay sober. And so what other people do is not my business, is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to work these 12 steps. And again, in such a way that I'm demonstrating their power. It goes on to say, the others must be convinced of his new status beyond a shadow of a doubt. Seeing is believing to most families who have lived with a drinker. Again, I don't need to go on tangents. That's what the book is saying. I need to demonstrate the change. I need to demonstrate these 12 steps. And I cannot demonstrate something I'm not doing. I need to be active. I need to be doing And when I do, the results will take care of themselves. This whole program is one of action, is one of experience, is one of growth. It goes on to say, here is a case in point. Now we're going to go on a whole tangent with this guy. His name is Earl Treat, and he's a real treat. So if you can't have candy or chocolates, you can have an Earl Treat. You might be like, I don't want an Earl Treat, especially after we read this story. But his story is in the back is called He Sold Himself Short. And we're going to go investigate and bounce around a little bit, have a little experience with him. So here's a case in point. One of our friends is a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. An alcoholic who is sober, who chain smoking and like chugging back coffee. Yeah, not Lynn. She would never. Yeah, right? Like, what? And I will say, if you're going to an in-person meeting that you've never gone to before and you're like, you're not sure, because a lot of times they're in church basements, right? So you don't know which door to go in. You just find a group of people stand in front of the church chain smoking. It's like, found the AA meeting. We're there. We're there. So it says, our friend Earl is a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. There is no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, and I will say, who hasn't nagged out of anything other than helpfulness or a desire for helpfulness? I might point out my motives don't matter too much. If I'm nagging, even with the best intentions. And it talks about in the third step that like we have good motives and yet we're stepping on toes. So seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it. So admonish is just another way to say like nag, to like chastise, to criticize. And I don't know about you, but I can tell you, you criticize and nag me, that's not a good way to enact change. And I have never been nagged into continual action. I might do it once or twice to get you off my back, but I'm not making a major lifestyle change just to appease you. In fact, I have a bad tendency. You tell me I got to, I'm going to double down on the behavior. Back in the day when I smoked. So again, this is not a judgment of anyone smoking. I've shared this story about how I got separated from nicotine. God did it for me. I couldn't have done it. But back in the day, I would smoke. And I'd be outside the meeting and have a cigarette. And so somebody would quit smoking would be like, those things will kill you. And I'd have a long haul on that cigarette. I'd go, here's hoping, which is maybe not the most spiritual response. But I wasn't in the best place. You know, I was unrecovered and living in self in and around that time. So it says he admitted he was overdoing these things, but he frankly said that he was not ready to stop. He wasn't there. He didn't want to quit. His wife is one of those persons who feels there is something rather sinful about these commodities, so she nagged. And as we saw in the chapter 2 Wives, that's not an effective strategy. And this whole book is about like, hey, what's effective? It doesn't work. It goes on to say, her intolerance finally threw him into a fit of anger. He got drunk. Now, and some of us are like, oh my gosh, this is a wild end to the chapter. You know, we're talking about candy and impotence, and now we can smoke and drink coffee. Like, wild. Who saw that coming? It takes a turn. Now, what I will point out is this message is the message for the family. So we're going to read the message for the family, and then we're going to go to Earl's story, and we're going to see some kind of fun and interesting stuff, some of a history of some of the early days, and bounce around a little bit. But we're going to see what really the message is for us as alcoholics, as recovered alcoholics. What is the message for us? So those of us who are getting there, want to be recovered alcoholics, who are in the process, go after it, yeah. But it goes on to say, okay, of course, our friend was wrong, dead wrong. So we're not arguing that. We're not saying that. He had to painfully admit that and mend his spiritual fences. To mend the fences is to make amends. So he had to admit his faults and make amends. It goes on to say, though he is now a most effective member of Alcoholics Anonymous, he still smokes and drinks coffee. Yeah, you can, don't you worry. We're not asking you to give up the smokes and the coffee. You do you. Not an ounce of judgment. It says, but neither his wife nor anyone else stands in judgment. She sees she was wrong to make a burning issue out of such matters when his more serious ailments were being rapidly cured. And so the message for the family members is that idea of, let's pick our battles. This is a human being who is absolutely dying of alcoholism, who was a tornado in the lives of anyone they came into contact with. And now they are sober. And actually, I don't think there's any, oh no, we got one Canadian. For the Canadians, they're having their 8 double-doubles a day. It's a Tim Hortons, it's a brand of, anywho. They're having a whole bunch of coffees a day, and they're, smoking half a pack to 2 packs a day. It's like, yes. And we can move with that. But right now, hey, they're sober. Let's pick our battles. Now, let's pop over to 262. And let's read about Earl Treat. And sometimes we're going to go to the very, very bottom line of 262. Now, Earl Treat is the gentleman who started Alcoholics Anonymous in Chicago. And I was giggling to myself because I was zooming in and I was doing a lead share. I've done a couple of these where I'm in Chicago and just the inspiration strikes. And I decided to do an Earl Treat big book bounce around where I bounce around the big book and Earl Treat's story and all of that. And I always like to joke. It's like, because when I do Experience, Strength, and Hope shares, I kind of got bored of the traditional ones and I just kind of sometimes do different things. And in this case, when I was doing the Earl Treat big book bounce around, I was talking about, well, where's the Experience, Strength, and Hope? It's under the sauce, which is, I think Tracy's going to get that joke. Because when you go and get Chicago-style pizza, where's the cheese? It's under the sauce. And so that was the joke I'm making. It's always funnier when I need to explain it. Alrighty. So it says, bottom of 262. The day before I was due to go back to Chicago, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. So what had happened up to this point is Earl Treat, he started AA in Chicago. He goes to Akron, Ohio. He gets connected with AA and he gets connected with Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob explains what the problem is. He explains the allergy of the body. He explains the obsession of the mind. He explains what the solution is, a spiritual awakening. And he explains the program of action. Now we're going to read the 6 steps. Now, it is likely that the 6 steps weren't really a thing, but it's an instruction manual. You know what I mean? We don't got to worry too much about, did they exist in the Oxford group? No. Did they exist in early in AA? Probably not. And that's okay. Don't stress about it. I know, shocking. But here's the thing. We got one of the history husbands, which that always reigns in my historical shenanigans. So I don't stand much, but I do stand to be corrected. Just shenaniganing. No, okay. That was the closest I could get with that word. Anywho. So they laid down the foundation of steps 1, 2, 3. So it says, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. And this is something I haven't pointed out before. Isn't that nice of him? He has an afternoon off. And this is what he's doing. Much of our spare time spent working with others. Just going to point that out. It was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. He had me to the office. Oh, I'm going to make this joke. It's so stupid, but I'm going to make it anyways. So in those early days, and imagine in this setting. Now, historically, Earl Treat, he had already been, they had checked out some of the Oxford group meeting, like he checked it out, and so he knew what was up. But I'm going to tell the story historically inaccurate for the joke. So imagine this guy from Chicago shows up and he hears that there's a solution for alcoholism. It's blossoming in Akron, Ohio. And there's a doctor, Dr. Bob Smith. And he goes to the Akron City Hospital, and he goes, and he's desperate. He's looking for any answer. And he's like, all right, Dr. Robert Holbrook Smith, where is it? 3rd floor, and it says colorectal surgeon, proctologist. And in that moment, the solution for alcoholism appears to be invasive anal surgery. All I'm saying is he went in. He went in. That guy was willing. Now, all I'm saying, that 4-step, not that big a deal now, is it? So some of us are like, no, I'll do the surgery. That sounds easier. But, that level of willingness. So he had me to the office, and we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. 3 or 4 hours. 3 or 4 hours to get through, now, what we'll see is that what he would have done was he would have done his inventory, and they would have probably talked through the inventory together. They definitely did do, the 7th step together. But he then gave information on how to go through steps 8 and 9, and he would go back to Chicago and do that. But that piece of work, that we'll say 4 through 8, that took 3 or 4 hours. It does not take long to get well. And this might sound wild for anyone who's been sitting on and no judgment to anyone who's sitting on a 4-step. We've all done it. Listen, I was going to say it's ergonomic. The 4-step is not ergonomic. It'll give you back pain, a real pain in your butt when you sit on it too long. The time it takes to actually do a 4-step is not that long. What takes a long time is all the time I spend trying to avoid it. At least that's been my experience. So we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. The 6 steps were 1, complete deflation. Now, when we talk about that deflation, in those early days, it wasn't just that deflation in regards to I cannot stay sober. It was this deflation of the ego, that I can't live my life the way that I'm doing. And you'll see that sort of mirrored in steps 1, 2, 3. In step 1, we emphasize the deflation of I cannot drink, and more importantly, I cannot stay sober. So there is that deflation. And then step 2, we talk about the bedevilments, which is we talk about the spiritual condition, what it is like to live with that conscious sense of separateness from God. The restless, irritable discontent, we talk about that. And I can't overcome that on my own. In the 3rd step, we talk about any life lived on self-will can hardly be a success. And we talk about what it is like for me to sit in the delusion of the God chair trying to fix and manage and control my life, let alone anyone else's. And it is a deeper and deeper coming to the end of myself. I need a power to come in. And then it says dependence and guidance from a higher power. Now, an equivalence for that would be like 2 and 3. Moral inventory, that sounds like step 4. Confession sounds like a 5th step. Restitution sounds like step 9. Continued work with alcoholics, that sounds like step 12. And, just added some steps that are like, hey, that thing you did 4 through 9, keep doing that. That's what 10 is. Hey, that thing that you did in 4 through 9 and you're doing in 10? Keep doing that. That's part of 11, the evening review. And then grow and seek and deepen. Prayer, meditation, keep it going. That's also 11. So, and I'll read this next paragraph to kind of sort of illuminate. It says, Dr. Bob led me through all of these steps. At moral inventory, he brought up several of my bad personality traits or character defects, such as selfishness, conceit, jealousy, carelessness, intolerance, ill temper, sarcasm, and resentments. Anyone here feeling a little called out? And that's the thing is I when I receive 5th steps, I write what I hear the person say their defects of character are, not what I think, not based on my opinions, but what I hear them say based on their inventory, and then I give it to them. It goes on to say, we went over these at great length. And then he finally asked me if I wanted these defects of character removed. When I said yes, we both knelt at his desk and prayed, each one of us asking to have these defects of character taken away. And that mirrors his 7th step, right? So they went through the inventory process, and it feels like they probably did 4 and 5 really together in that free-flowing way. Also, I don't get a lot of people that are like, Paige, don't sponsor people in the way that you're sponsoring people, at least anymore. But there are times when people are like, you sit with your sponsees, you shouldn't have to sit with them through the fourth step. Well, what I will say is Dr. Bob did, and if Dr. Bob did it, I can do it too. He was also a prolific golfer, and he got a set of clubs. He was a right-handed golfer, and his golf clubs were left-handed, and he learned how to golf left-handed, which apparently, for those that are interested in golf, not me, that's quite difficult and quite impressive. So that was an unexpected fun fact. It literally just slipped out. I couldn't keep it in. Oh, I am fun at parties. Alrighty, let's read about steps 8 and 9. The picture is still vivid. If I live to be 100, it will always stand out in my mind. It was very impressive, and I wish that every AA could have had the benefit of this type of sponsorship today. Dr. Bob always emphasized the religious angle and very strongly, and I think it helped. I know it helped me. Dr. Bob then led me through the restitution step, so making amends, in which I made a list of all the persons I had harmed and worked out the ways and means of slowly making restitution. And so he goes back to Chicago and he does it. We're going to skip over a couple of these paragraphs just in respect of time. So let's pop over to page 264 and let's go to the very, very bottom paragraph. Now, that very bottom paragraph, if you want to tie it into where we left off, you can make a note to see page 135. And when we go back to page 135, we can make a note to see page 264 if you want this tie-in. And this was so cool because I found this organically. You know, I was like, wait a minute, oh, that's Earl, that's that guy. Like I made this connection. So it goes on to say, a few months, bottom paragraph 264, a few months after I made my original trip to Akron, I was feeling pretty cocky. Who could relate? And I didn't think my wife was treating me with proper respect now that I was an outstanding citizen. I am sober. Yeah, you're supposed to be. I'm not crashing the car into the garage. You're not supposed to, you know? Right? So, and by the way, and nagging me about the coffee and the cigarettes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There it is. So I set out to get drunk deliberately just to teach her what she was missing. That'll show her. Anyone drink it at somebody? Oh, let me ruin my life. That'll teach you. You know, I'm going to burn it to the ground. That'll teach you a lesson. All right. So he says, and this is a surprise to no one, a week later, I had to get an old friend from Akron to spend 2 days sobering me up. And I want to point something out. Even though he got drunk deliberately, it was still the obsession of the mind. Because he could not see the reality. He could not see the inevitability of, I'm going to go on a bender that I'm not going to be able to stop. And 2 weeks later, I'm going to have somebody come and detox me. He couldn't see it. So even though he's saying he's drinking deliberately, it is still the obsession of the mind. So it says, a week later, I had to get an old friend from Akron to spend 2 days sobering me up. That was my lesson, that one could not take the moral inventory and then file it away. That the alcoholic has to continue to take inventory every day if he expects to get well and stay well. That was my only slip. It taught me a valuable lesson. So the lesson for the family is to pick my battles. You know, maybe let's be a little chill about where they're leaving their socks, you know, for now. But the lesson for somebody like me, the lesson for somebody whose life depends on the growth and maintenance of a spiritual experience is that I need to continue to take inventory. And I need to do that on a daily basis. And when things pop up, I grab them in the 10th step. And when I miss them in the 10th step, because I will, I catch them in the evening review. And so that's what he's saying. And then sometimes, man, life hits and I got to do a whole 4 through 9 because life just hits and it builds up. And I, you know, Canada, it's like you get a snowstorm and you got to deal with it all at once, right? That sort of stuff happens, and that is okay. And so the lesson for us is I need to continue to take inventory, and I need to do it on a daily basis. And that is a vitally important lesson. Now, let's go back to page 135. Very bottom of page 135, it says, there are 3 little mottos which are apropos. Here they are. Bottom of 135, three little mottos. The first motto is first things first. Now, first things first, I have heard this. I don't know if it's true. I can be corrected if I'm wrong. I heard that Anne was always big on first things first. By the way, when I say Anne, sorry, I realize there's no context to that. It's like, Mary Sue, I don't know who Anne is. Who are you talking about, Paige? Dr. Bob's wife, Anne Smith. And we were talking about her before the meeting. I have Anne on the brain, Anne Smith. That when she was talking about first things first meant God. Put God, higher power, the creator, the spirit of the universe, put that first. And my experience is when I do that, everything in my life becomes first class. I've only ever done business class, and I felt like that was a little too fancy for me. So first class must be classy. But when I'm on my own, I'm in economy, guys. I'm an economy sort of gal. All right, focus, Paige. I'm like, if Vivian was here, she'd be like, wrap it up. We're 5 minutes to, and I'm like, going over my bed. So first things is God. I put that relationship with God first, and everything else works out. And it is true how often that happens. It goes on to say, live and let live. And I've done some Al-Anon work because I've needed to. Have you seen how codependent I am? Absolutely. So I've done some steps, and I've done a set of steps in Al-Anon. I've done some Al-Anon, and Al-Anon is big on slogans. And one of the slogans they emphasize is live and let live. And in their literature, they pointed something out that I had not seen. A lot of times I am able to focus on let live. Okay, you do you do you, boo. But I get to also do me. I forget to live. Do what I feel called to do. I get to give others the dignity of their own experience to live life as they feel called, but I get to do that too. It is live and let live. And then when it says easy does it. And my brain, because I was a thing when people were like, easy does it. And I would go, but do it. Like, we got to do it. But it's that, I always think about in the third step when we talk about this inability to wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if we manage well. And if I go after this work, if I go after these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it because it does, what happens is like I get to experience that, like the lazy river of spirituality. I got to keep working at it. And I work at it hard. I live this way of life. Like I don't got a lot of hobbies, like I'm doing this thing. But the more I do this, the more life flows, the more it is easy does it. And that's really, really been my experience. So with 3 minutes left, I will stop the recording, and next week we're going to get into 2 employers, and I promise we're going to have a whole lot more fun in it than you might expect. Listen, if I got you to see some value in 2 wives, woo! Like, we're going to have some fun in 2 employers. So we'll kick that off next week.